She's deaf! Take her!" The drunk father shouted, but one mountain man whispered, "I know you can he." The small mountain town was surrounded by steep hills and thick forests, a place where the sun seemed to rise slowly, and the wind carried the scent of pine and earth. Life here was quiet, predictable, and sometimes harsh. Families worked hard to survive, tending small farms or hunting in the woods. Among them lived a young couple, John and Martha, who had longed for a child for many years. Their house was simple, built of weathered wood and stone, with a small garden that Martha tended carefully. Despite the challenges of the mountains, they were happy, dreaming of a little girl who could bring joy to their lonely lives. When their daughter Anna was born, the midwife noticed something unusual. The baby did not respond to the sounds around her. She did not flinch when the dog barked outside, nor did she stir when the church bells rang in the distance. Martha, tender and loving, hoped it was just a phase, something that might pass as the child grew. But John, who had always struggled with anger and disappointment, became frustrated quickly. The truth was difficult to accept. Anna was deaf. John had spent much of his life carrying bitterness. Work was hard, money was scarce, and his own dreams had often been crushed by the unforgiving mountains. The idea that his daughter might never hear the world as others did filled him with fear and anger. In his intoxicated moments, he would shout at the child, calling her useless or burden. Martha, on the other hand, would cradle Anna in her arms, speaking softly, guiding her hands to feel the shapes of objects, and hoping that somehow her daughter could communicate and connect with the world despite the silence. From the very beginning, Anna showed a quiet determination. She watched the people around her with sharp eyes, noticing the smallest movements, the slightest changes in expression. She learned quickly to understand what people wanted from her through gestures and tone of voice, even if she could not hear the words themselves. By the time she was 2, Anna could express herself through signs she created, simple hand movements, and expressions that often amazed Martha. The mother saw her daughter's intelligence and heart, and for a moment she dared to hope that perhaps Anna's life could be full and happy. But the town was not always kind. Some neighbors whispered about Anna behind her mother's back. They doubted whether a child who could not hear could grow into a useful, productive member of society. They pitied her, and their pity often felt more like judgment. The mountain town, isolated and steeped in tradition, had little patience for anything different. Children were expected to work alongside their parents, to help on the farm, to carry messages, and to live according to strict routines. A girl who could not hear seemed to many like a burden too heavy for a family already struggling. Despite this, Anna's spirit was unbroken. She loved to explore the woods near her home, feeling the cool moss under her fingers, watching the birds flutter above, and listening, not with ears, but with her whole body. She could feel the vibrations of footsteps on the earth and the shift of wind through the trees. These small wonders became her language, and nature her teacher. Martha encouraged these explorations, telling her daughter that the world was full of ways to understand and be understood, even without sound. John, however, could not see these things. When he drank, the anger inside him grew stronger. On nights when the house was quiet and Martha slept, he would shout at Anna for not responding. He wanted her to obey, to behave like other children, and when she could not, he felt frustration boil over. "Why can't you be normal?" he would sometimes scream, his words sharp and heavy. But Anna had learned to shield herself, retreating into her own quiet world when the anger came. She found comfort in small things: the sunlight on the wooden floor, the hum of the wind through the chimney, the way her mother's hand always found hers to guide her safely. Neighbors began to take notice of the tension in the house. Some pitied Anna, feeling that her mother was trapped in a life with a husband who could not love their child properly. Others simply avoided the family, uncomfortable with the shouting and the drunken behavior that sometimes spilled into the streets. Yet there were moments when Anna's cleverness shone. She would watch people carefully, learning how to help with chores, how to mimic the movement she saw, and even how to calm her father when he began to drink too much. It was as if she had learned to navigate the world not by listening, but by observing, feeling, and understanding the rhythm of people's emotions. Martha never left Anna alone, teaching her small tricks and signs to communicate. She would point to the fire when it needed wood, to the garden when weeds had grown, and to her own mouth to show how to make sounds. Even though Anna could not hear, she understood the meaning. Martha believed that this silent bond was strong enough to help her daughter survive, no matter what. And Anna, in her quiet way, began to understand that love could be felt even when words were impossible. As the years passed, Anna grew taller, stronger, and more aware of the world around her. She learned to carry water from the well without spilling a drop, to help in the garden, and even to guide her mother through the crowded market when supplies were needed. The townspeople began to notice her skills, though some still doubted her future. Anna had a calm confidence that came from knowing that she could rely on herself and that her mother's love was steadfast. Yet, John's temper remained a shadow over their lives. On particularly bad days, when the alcohol had taken over his judgment, he would shout at Anna for the smallest mistakes. On one such day, he dragged her outside in the bitter mountain wind, raising his voice so that neighbors could hear. "She's deaf! What good is she?" he screamed, staggering with anger. His words struck fear into Anna's heart, but she had learned not to show weakness. She looked at her father, her eyes steady, her small hands clenched, ready to protect herself. It was during these moments of fear and tension that Anna's resilience truly shone. She began to notice subtle things about people, how the hand trembled before it struck, how the eyes softened when there was kindness, how someone's presence could calm anger. She had learned to see the truth behind words, to understand intentions, and to read the world in ways that others could not. These skills became her armor, protecting her in a life that sometimes felt harsh and unforgiving. Even as a small child, Anna had dreams. She wanted to explore the woods further, to find the streams where fish darted, and to climb the hills to see the world from above. She imagined a life where people would understand her, not because she could hear, but because she had learned to communicate in her own unique way. Martha often encouraged these dreams, telling her daughter that her spirit was stronger than any obstacle, and that love and patience could guide her through even the darkest times. But the town's whispers never stopped. Some parents told their children to stay away from Anna, fearing she would not understand instructions or rules. Others would glance at her with pity, unsure whether to offer help or ignore her. These moments were painful, yet Anna learned to meet them with quiet dignity. She realized that people's judgments said more about them than about her, and that her life's path would be defined by courage, not by the limitations others saw. By the time Anna reached the age of 6, she had grown into a perceptive, observant, and intelligent child. Her eyes seemed to take in everything, her mind working tirelessly to understand the world. Martha continued to guide her, teaching her signs, gestures, and ways to communicate. She encouraged Anna to speak with her hands, her eyes, and even her expressions. Together, they developed a bond so deep that even in moments of fear or sorrow, Anna felt safe and loved. Yet, John's anger remained. The mountain winds seemed to carry his shouts farther, reaching the ears of neighbors who shook their heads at the family's struggles. Anna began to understand, in her own way, that her father's behavior was not a reflection of her worth, but of his own pain and frustration. This understanding, combined with her mother's unwavering support, gave her strength beyond her years. It was in these early years, filled with both hardship and quiet triumphs, that Anna began to form the foundation of the life she would lead. She learned that love could exist without words, that strength could grow in silence, and that even the harshest anger could not crush a determined heart. The mountains, with their towering trees and whispering winds, became both her home and her teacher. They showed her the power of patience, observation, and resilience. And so, despite the challenges of a father who could not accept her, a town that questioned her future, and a world that seemed unkind, Anna thrived. She moved through life with grace, intelligence, and a quiet confidence that would one day change not only her destiny, but the lives of everyone around her. As Anna grew older, the mountain town around her remained the same, quiet, isolated, and full of rugged beauty. Life moved slowly here, but it could also be unforgiving. The townspeople whispered, some with curiosity, some with judgment, about the deaf girl who seemed so different from the other children. But Anna had grown strong and careful. She had learned to observe people, read their movements, and sense their moods without needing words. Her eyes were sharp, and her hands had learned to speak in ways her ears could not hear. Martha continued to guide Anna patiently. Each day was filled with lessons: how to read expressions, how to understand the rhythm of the world around her, and how to protect herself when her father's anger flared. But John's drinking had worsened. On nights when the house was filled with the smell of alcohol and the clatter of dishes, he became unpredictable. Anna had learned to sense when a storm was coming, sometimes even before he stumbled through the door. She would quietly retreat to a corner, her hands clutched around a small wooden doll, listening not with ears but with every fiber of her being. One late evening, as the sun was dipping behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, John returned home earlier than usual. His steps were unsteady, and the smell of alcohol was strong. Martha was preparing dinner, her hands shaking slightly as she placed a pot on the wooden stove. Anna had been drawing in the dirt outside, practicing the signs her mother had taught her. The wind carried the sound of her father's stumbling steps, and she felt it in the vibrations of the wooden floor beneath her feet. Something in the air made her pause. She sensed that this night would be different. John entered the house, shouting at the top of his lungs. His words were filled with anger and frustration. But Anna, as always, did not respond verbally. She had learned that responding sometimes only made things worse. Martha tried to calm him, her hands raised in gentle gestures, her eyes pleading. But John was beyond reason. He pointed at Anna, his face twisted with rage. "She's useless. She can't hear anything. What good is she?" His voice echoed through the house, loud enough that neighbors would later remember it for weeks. Anna's heart pounded, but she did not cry. She had learned to hold her fear tightly, to hide it behind her calm eyes. Martha stepped closer to her daughter, placing a hand on her small shoulder. Anna felt the warmth and steadiness of her mother's touch and drew courage from it. She understood in the quiet way only she could that her mother believed in her, even when her father did not. John's anger reached a breaking point. He grabbed Anna roughly by the arm, dragging her outside into the cold evening air. The wind whipped around her, carrying the sharp scent of pine and the distant sound of the river rushing through the valley. Neighbors who had been passing by stopped in shock, whispering among themselves. Some wanted to step forward, but fear held them back. John was too strong, too unpredictable, and the girl seemed too fragile to intervene safely. As he lifted his voice, shouting at the top of his lungs, the words cut through the quiet mountain night. "She's deaf! Take her! Take her from me!" His face was red, his eyes wild. For a moment it seemed that Anna's life could change forever. The crowd of onlookers hesitated, unsure what to do with a child who could not hear and had no one to protect her but her mother. The tension in the air was thick, almost suffocating, as if the mountains themselves were holding their breath. It was then that a quiet figure stepped forward from the edge of the crowd. He was an older man, tall and sturdy, with a long coat that had seen many winters, and hands calloused from years of hard work. The townspeople had always known him as a recluse, a man who preferred the mountains to the village, who spoke little and listened more. His presence alone seemed to calm some of the frightened neighbors. He looked at Anna carefully, studying her small frame, her determined eyes, and the fear she tried to hide. The man whispered softly, so that only Anna could feel the sound in her chest and see the intent in his expression. "I know you can hear," he said. The words were like a gentle hand reaching out in the darkness, offering a lifeline. Anna's eyes widened. She had always thought her world was silent, filled only with vibrations and movement. But this man somehow seemed to understand her in a way no one else had. She felt a spark of hope, small but bright, that perhaps someone believed in her abilities, someone who could see past her deafness. John, caught in his own rage, did not notice the exchange at first. He continued to shout, demanding that someone take his daughter and rid him of the burden he could not bear. But the mountain man did not respond with anger or judgment. He stepped closer to Anna, bending slightly so that his eyes met hers. The calm in his presence was so strong that it almost seemed to push back the storm of John's fury. Anna felt a strange sense of safety, as if she could trust this man to protect her when no one else would. Martha, still trembling, watched from behind, her heart filled with both fear and relief. She had always known that her daughter needed protection, guidance, and love, but she had feared that no one could ever step in when her husband's anger flared. Now, she saw that there was someone who might be able to help Anna navigate a world that seemed so harsh and unforgiving. Her eyes met the mountain man's for a brief moment, a silent acknowledgement of gratitude and hope. The man spoke again, this time in words that seemed to carry the weight of experience and quiet understanding. "She can survive. She can learn. You don't have to give up on her." His voice was calm, steady, and full of reassurance. Anna felt as if he was speaking directly to her, not with sound, but with a connection that went beyond words. She nodded slightly, understanding that the stranger might be the person who could help her find strength and a place in the world where she belonged. John's anger began to falter as he saw the calm determination in the man and the small, brave girl who stood before him. He stumbled backward, uncertainty clouding his eyes. The crowd held its breath. Some of the townspeople whispered to each other, amazed that anyone could step forward and face John's wrath without fear. The mountain man did not challenge John with words or force. Instead, he simply stood with confidence and quiet authority, a living example that strength could come from calmness and understanding rather than anger. Anna, feeling the presence of the man beside her, took a small but important step forward. She had learned over the years to move carefully, to observe, and to act when necessary. Her hands moved in small gestures, pointing to herself, then to the mountain man, and finally to the sky, signaling trust, hope, and connection. The man nodded, acknowledging her message, and in that moment, a silent bond was formed, a bond that would shape the rest of her life. The night seemed to stretch on as the tension slowly eased. John, overwhelmed by his own emotions and perhaps by the realization that his daughter was stronger than he had believed, turned and stumbled away. muttering incoherent words. The crowd dispersed quietly, leaving the mountain man and Anna alone with Martha. There was no grand speech, no dramatic confrontation, just a quiet understanding that Anna had found an ally, someone who would see her not as a burden, but as a child capable of learning, growing, and thriving. The mountain man took Anna's hand gently and led her toward the forest that bordered the town. The wind rustled the trees, carrying the scent of pine and earth, and Anna felt a sense of wonder she had never known before. The mountains had always been her home, but now they felt alive in a new way. With the man guiding her, she realized that her deafness was not a weakness but a different way of experiencing the world, a way that could teach her patience, observation, and resilience. Martha watched them walk into the dim light, her heart full of hope and fear at the same time. She knew that Anna's life was about to change in ways she could not yet understand. But she also knew that this man, quiet and wise, had the power to give her daughter a future filled with possibility. The mother trusted that he would protect Anna, teach her, and help her discover the strength that had always been inside her. That night, as the stars began to sparkle over the mountain peaks, Anna felt something she had never felt before, a sense of belonging, of hope, and of courage. She was still the deaf girl who had faced judgment, fear, and anger, but now she had found someone who believed in her, someone who saw her potential, and someone who could guide her on a path toward a life she could never have imagined. The night air was cold, but it carried a promise that Anna would not be alone, that she could survive, and that the world, in its own quiet way, had room for her to shine. Anna followed the mountain man into the woods, her small hand wrapped securely in his. The forest was alive with sounds that she could feel more than hear: the soft crunch of leaves underfoot, the vibrations of branches swaying in the wind, and the distant gurgle of a hidden stream. She had spent her life noticing details, observing the world silently, but this forest felt different. It was a place of freedom and mystery, a place where no one would judge her for being deaf, and where her senses could guide her instead of words. The man, who Anna would soon learn was called Elias, moved with a quiet confidence. His eyes were always alert, scanning the forest for signs of danger, and his hands were rough but gentle. He never shouted, never demanded obedience, and never judged. He only watched, waited, and guided. Anna noticed how carefully he moved, how he touched the bark of trees and listened to the wind with his chest rather than his ears. She realized that this man understood the world in a way she had never seen before, a way that did not rely on sound, but on attention, patience, and intuition. Elias led Anna to a small clearing where the sunlight filtered through the trees, creating patterns on the forest floor. There he set down a bundle of simple tools, some sharpened stones, a few ropes, and a handmade wooden bowl. He gestured to Anna, showing her how to handle the tools safely. His hands moved slowly and deliberately, teaching without rushing, explaining through gestures and expressions rather than words. Anna watched carefully, absorbing every motion, every small hint of meaning. She realized that she could learn in a way that others might not understand, a way that was quiet but powerful. The first days were difficult. Anna had grown up in the small, confined spaces of her home, surrounded by walls and familiar objects. The forest was vast and unpredictable. She stumbled over roots, misjudged the depth of streams, and at first felt overwhelmed by the sheer freedom of it all. But Elias never scolded her. Instead, he guided her hand to feel the shape of a stone, the texture of moss, the way the soil changed near the water. Slowly, Anna began to understand. She learned to trust her senses, to move with care, and to observe everything with patience. One of the first lessons Elias taught her was about listening, not with ears, but with the body and the mind. He would place her hand on a tree and show her how the trunk vibrated with the movements of animals or the rustle of leaves in the wind. He taught her to feel the vibrations of birds landing nearby, of small animals scurrying through the underbrush, and even the subtle tremor of the earth when larger creatures passed. Anna's eyes widened with wonder. She realized that sound was only one part of the world and that she could understand more than she had ever imagined if she only paid attention. Elias also taught her about plants and herbs. He showed her which leaves could be eaten, which roots could be boiled for food, and which berries were safe. Anna learned to smell the differences between similar plants, to feel the textures of leaves and bark, and to remember the patterns that marked safe food from dangerous. She began to explore small areas on her own, carefully, always aware of the lessons Elias had taught her. Each day she grew more confident, more independent, and more in tune with the rhythms of the forest. But the lessons were not only about survival. Elias also taught Anna about patience, observation, and understanding people. He explained, through gestures and expressions, that anger, fear, and frustration were natural, but that how one responded to them defined strength. Anna remembered her father's anger and the fear it had caused her. She realized that she could learn to remain calm, to read situations, and to protect herself through intelligence and patience rather than force. These lessons were more powerful than any tool or skill. They were lessons for life. One morning, Elias took Anna to a small stream hidden deep in the woods. The water was cold and clear, rushing over smooth stones. He showed her how to follow the flow, to notice the direction of the current, and to find safe paths along its banks. He taught her how to catch small fish, how to identify the tracks of animals nearby, and how to move quietly so as not to disturb them. Anna was fascinated. Every movement, every sound, every vibration of the water carried information. She began to see the forest not as a confusing, overwhelming place, but as a living, breathing world full of signs and messages. The more Anna learned, the more she realized how capable she was. Her deafness, which had seemed like a limitation, became a strength. She could focus intensely on details others might miss, and she could notice patterns and movements that others overlooked. Elias encouraged this. He never treated her as weak or different. Instead, he celebrated her observations, praised her patience, and showed her that her mind and body were powerful tools. Elias also introduced Anna to the idea of self-reliance. He taught her how to build small shelters from branches and leaves, how to make a fire using friction and patience, and how to store food safely. Each task was a challenge, and each challenge taught Anna something new about herself. She discovered that she could face difficulties with courage and creativity, and that the world, while sometimes harsh, also offered endless opportunities for learning and growth. In addition to practical skills, Elias nurtured Anna's spirit. He showed her how to watch the sunrise and sunset, how to notice the subtle colors of the sky, and how to feel gratitude for the small joys in life. He encouraged her to draw patterns in the dirt, to imitate animal tracks, and to create signs and gestures of her own invention. These exercises were not only playful but educational, helping Anna to express herself in new and creative ways. She began to understand that communication was not limited to words, and that her mind could connect with others through observation, gestures, and understanding. Days turned into weeks, and Anna grew stronger, more skilled, and more confident. She could navigate the forest alone for short distances, identify plants and animals, and anticipate changes in the weather. She no longer felt frightened by the vastness of the woods. Instead, she felt a deep sense of belonging. The forest, once overwhelming, had become a place of learning, safety, and wonder. One day, Elias sat with Anna on a large, flat rock near a waterfall. The sound of rushing water vibrated through the stone, and Anna placed her hands on its surface, feeling the power and rhythm of the falls. Elias gestured to her, showing that even though she could not hear in the usual way, she could feel the energy and flow of the world around her. Anna smiled, a sense of triumph and joy swelling in her chest. She understood now that her life was not defined by what she could not do, but by all that she could learn and achieve. As the seasons changed, so did Anna. She became agile, strong, and observant. She learned to anticipate storms, to track animals, and to find food in even the harshest conditions. But more importantly, she learned resilience, patience, and trust. Elias never forced her to follow rules blindly. He guided her, encouraged her, and allowed her to make mistakes so that she could learn from them. Through this method, Anna discovered her own strength, independence, and sense of purpose. The bond between Anna and Elias grew deeper with each passing day. He treated her with respect and care, and she trusted him completely. She began to understand that family could be found in those who believed in her, who nurtured her abilities, and who provided guidance without judgment. For the first time in her life, Anna felt truly safe, truly seen, and truly capable. She realized that the mountains and forests were not just her home, they were her teachers, her companions, and her sanctuary. By the end of the first year with Elias, Anna had transformed from a frightened, uncertain child into a confident, intelligent young girl. Her deafness no longer felt like a limitation. It had become part of her strength. She could read the world in ways others could not, feel its rhythms, and respond with intelligence and skill. Elias had not only taught her survival, but had also given her the tools to navigate life with courage, patience, and understanding. And so, life in the forest continued. Anna rose each morning with determination, explored with curiosity, and learned with joy. She knew that challenges would come, but she also knew that she had the strength, skills, and guidance to face them. For the first time, she felt the quiet power of independence and the profound impact of someone who truly believed in her. In the heart of the mountains, Anna discovered not just survival, but life, rich, vibrant, and full of possibility. Years had passed since Anna first stepped into the forest with Elias. The small, deaf girl who had once been frightened and unsure had grown into a strong, intelligent, and independent young woman. She moved through the woods with ease, understanding the rhythm of the trees, the sounds of the animals, and the subtle vibrations of the earth beneath her feet. Her senses had sharpened in ways that most people could never imagine. She could sense storms before they arrived, follow the faintest tracks of animals, and read people's emotions through their gestures and expressions. The forest had become her classroom, her sanctuary, and her home. Elias had taught her everything he could about survival, observation, and understanding the world without relying on sound. But he had also taught her something more important: the power of courage and self-respect. Anna had learned that strength was not about fighting or shouting. It was about patience, awareness, and intelligence. She had learned to face fear with calm determination and to respond to challenges with careful thought. These lessons had prepared her for more than just life in the forest. They had prepared her for life itself. One morning, as the sun rose over the mountain peaks and painted the sky in shades of gold and pink, Elias found Anna sitting quietly by a stream. Her eyes were thoughtful, and her hands traced patterns in the dirt. Elias sat beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. He gestured to the village in the distance, its small buildings visible through the trees. Anna understood immediately. It had been years since she had seen her father, and part of her had hoped she would never have to. But life in the forest had given her strength, and she realized that avoiding her past forever would not bring true peace. She needed to confront it, to face the man who had caused her so much fear, and to show that she had grown into a capable, strong individual. Elias nodded, understanding her thoughts without words. He had always guided her gently, allowing her to make her own choices, and now he would let her face this challenge in her own way. Anna and Elias set out toward the village together. As they approached, she felt a mixture of anxiety and determination. The streets looked smaller than she remembered, and yet they were filled with the same townspeople who had once whispered about her, some with curiosity, some with judgment. Anna's heart pounded, but she reminded herself of all she had learned, the power of observation, patience, and self-confidence. She would not be afraid. When they reached the house where John still lived, Anna's breath caught in her chest. The familiar structure looked smaller now, more fragile than it had when she was a child. She could see her father through the window, older, thinner, and more worn by life than she remembered. His hair was grayer, and the lines on his face told stories of regret, frustration, and struggle. For a moment, Anna hesitated. Could a man who had caused her so much fear change? Could he even recognize the young woman she had become? Elias gave her a small nod, a gesture of encouragement. Anna took a deep breath and stepped forward. She did not shout, she did not demand, and she did not plead. Instead, she moved with calm confidence, letting her presence speak louder than words. She entered the house, and her father looked up, startled. His eyes widened as he saw the young woman standing before him, strong, composed, and undeniably herself. For a long moment, there was silence. John could not find words, and Anna did not need them. Her eyes met his, steady and unflinching. She let him see the courage, intelligence, and strength that had grown in her during the years he had dismissed her. He saw the confidence in her posture, the determination in her hands, and the quiet authority in her gaze. The child he had once called useless was gone. In her place stood a woman who had survived, learned, and thrived despite every obstacle. John swallowed hard, his throat tight with emotion he could not express. The anger he had once felt was replaced by something heavier, regret, shame, and the dawning realization of how much he had missed. He had tried to dismiss her, to see her as a burden, but now he could see clearly that Anna was more capable, more intelligent, and stronger than he had ever imagined. The mountain had not defeated her. It had shaped her into someone remarkable. Anna reached out a hand, not to demand forgiveness, but to offer a choice. She wanted her father to understand that while she had grown, she was still the same person he had once rejected. Her gesture was patient, firm, and full of dignity. She did not need him to apologize or explain. She simply wanted him to see the result of the love, guidance, and resilience that had carried her through the years. For the first time, John looked at his daughter with awe. He saw the forest in her eyes, the wisdom in her movements, and the quiet strength that radiated from her. He understood, perhaps for the first time, that his anger and fear had blinded him to her potential. He had tried to control her, to diminish her, and to reject her, but life had shown him the truth. She was capable, strong, and worthy of love and respect. The reunion was quiet but powerful. There were no words, no dramatic apologies, no shouting. Instead, there was understanding, recognition, and a shared acknowledgement of the past. John reached out tentatively, and Anna allowed him to touch her hand. It was a simple gesture, but it carried the weight of years of fear, struggle, and growth. In that moment, the bond between father and daughter began to shift, not immediately, but slowly, with patience and respect. After that day, Anna continued to spend time in the village, showing the townspeople the skills she had learned from Elias. She helped with chores, guided lost travelers through the forests, and taught children about the plants, animals, and rhythms of the mountains. People who had once whispered doubts about her now watched in admiration. They saw a young woman who had faced fear, learned survival, and grown into someone wise, capable, and kind. Elias remained her guide and mentor, but Anna no longer needed constant supervision. She had learned independence, resilience, and confidence. She had faced her past, confronted her father, and shown the world that her abilities, intelligence, and strength were not defined by what she could not do, but by what she had learned to achieve. John, too, began to change. He observed his daughter's confidence and skill, and slowly, with humility and patience, he began to repair the relationship he had once neglected. He could not erase the past, but he could acknowledge it, learn from it, and show respect for the person Anna had become. In this quiet transformation, both father and daughter found a measure of peace, understanding, and hope for the future. Anna realized that confronting her past had been as important as learning survival skills in the forest. It had taught her courage, patience, and forgiveness. She understood now that strength was not only about enduring hardship, but also about facing it openly, learning from it, and using it to shape a better future. In the weeks that followed, Anna and Elias continued to teach each other, exploring new areas of the forest, learning new skills, and deepening their understanding of the natural world. But Anna also began to integrate into the village more fully, using her knowledge and experience to help others. She guided travelers, advised farmers on understanding the land, and even helped children learn to appreciate the world around them in ways they had never imagined. Her story spread quietly through the mountains. People spoke of the deaf girl who had once been dismissed and ridiculed, and who had grown into a remarkable young woman, capable of thriving in ways others could only dream of. Anna's courage, intelligence, and resilience became an example to everyone in the village, showing that challenges could be overcome with patience, observation, and determination. Through it all, Anna never forgot Elias. He had given her the tools, knowledge, and confidence to face the world. But she also understood that life's lessons did not end in the forest. They continued in every interaction, every challenge, and every choice she made. Her growth, her independence, and her courage were now her own, and she carried them with pride and humility. And so, Anna's life in the mountains continued, a life of learning, teaching, and quietly inspiring those around her. She had faced her father, confronted the fears of her past, and proven that resilience, intelligence, and courage could overcome even the harshest beginnings. The mountains, the forest, and the wisdom of Elias had shaped her into a woman who could face the world confidently, with strength and kindness, ready to leave a lasting impact on everyone she met. Years passed, and Anna's life had grown full of purpose, skill, and quiet strength. She had become a young woman admired and respected by the people in her mountain town and the surrounding forests. Her childhood struggles, her father's anger, the whispers of the townspeople, and the challenges of living deaf in a world built for hearing were now part of her story. But they no longer defined her. Instead, they had shaped her resilience, her intelligence, and her understanding of the world. Anna continued to live with Elias in the forest, though she often returned to the village to help and teach. People had come to see her not as a child who could not hear, but as someone capable of extraordinary understanding and skill. Farmers asked her advice about the land. Children followed her to learn about plants and animals, and travelers sought her guidance to navigate the rugged mountains. She communicated with everyone in the ways she had mastered, through gestures, expressions, and careful observation, and her presence brought calm, confidence, and respect. Her father, John, had slowly changed as well. The years of regret had softened him. He observed his daughter's abilities and independence with awe and humility. He tried to support her quietly, never again trying to control or belittle her. The bond between father and daughter, once fragile and filled with fear, had grown into one of mutual respect. Though the relationship was still healing, there was now a connection that had once seemed impossible. John had learned that love sometimes required patience and humility, and that strength could come in quiet, unexpected forms. Anna also continued her lessons with Elias, who remained a mentor, a guide, and a friend. He introduced her to new skills, new ways of observing the world, and new perspectives on life. He taught her how to track animals over long distances, how to predict weather changes by reading the sky and earth, and how to notice the smallest details that revealed hidden patterns in nature. Anna absorbed everything eagerly, her mind sharp and her curiosity unending. She understood that learning never truly ended, and that knowledge could be shared to benefit others. In the village, Anna became known as a teacher in her own right. She helped children learn to appreciate the world around them, teaching them to observe closely, think carefully, and act patiently. She showed them that life had many ways to communicate, many ways to solve problems, and many ways to overcome challenges. Parents came to trust her guidance, and soon Anna's reputation extended beyond the village to neighboring towns. People spoke quietly of the young woman who had once been dismissed, but who now inspired everyone she met with her intelligence, skill, and compassion. Anna's days were filled with learning, teaching, and helping others, but she also found moments of quiet reflection. She would often sit on a hill overlooking the forest, feeling the wind on her face, the warmth of the sun, and the gentle vibrations of the earth beneath her. In these moments, she thought of her journey, from the frightened, misunderstood child she had been to the confident, capable woman she had become. She remembered her mother's love, her father's anger, and Elias's guidance, and she felt gratitude for every step that had shaped her life. She also began to think about the future. Anna realized that her story could inspire others, showing that challenges, whether they came from the world, from circumstances, or from people, could be overcome with patience, courage, and determination. She wanted to help others see that abilities came in many forms, and that differences were not weaknesses but opportunities to learn, grow, and contribute. Her own deafness had become a gift, teaching her to notice things others might miss, and to communicate in ways that were creative, thoughtful, and meaningful. One day, a group of children approached her in the forest, curious and eager to learn. Anna smiled and led them to a small clearing, where she taught them how to identify plants, track animals, and understand the rhythms of nature. She showed them how to feel vibrations in the earth, notice changes in the wind, and pay attention to small details that revealed the patterns of life around them. The children were fascinated, their eyes wide with wonder as Anna guided them patiently. Her teaching was gentle but powerful, and she quickly became a beloved figure to everyone who spent time with her. In the village, adults began to seek her advice on matters beyond the forest. Farmers asked her to observe crops and suggest improvements. Merchants sought her insights about routes and weather patterns. Even the elders, who had once doubted her abilities, came to respect her knowledge and wisdom. Anna had become a bridge between the village and the mountains, showing people that understanding the natural world required attention, patience, and respect. Her deafness, once seen as a limitation, was now a symbol of her unique perspective and her ability to perceive the world in ways others could not. Elias watched Anna with quiet pride. He had guided her through the challenges of her youth, taught her the skills of survival, and nurtured her confidence. But he also knew that she had become more than a student. She had become a teacher, a mentor, and a leader. He understood that his role was not to control her path, but to support her growth. and he took satisfaction in knowing that Anna had flourished in every way imaginable. Anna's father, John, continued to heal as well. He often accompanied her on short trips into the forest, learning to appreciate the world through her eyes. He listened with attention, observed with care, and finally understood the power of patience, humility, and support. Though he could never undo the pain of the past, he worked to show his daughter that he had changed, and that he now valued her wisdom, courage, and independence. Their relationship, built slowly and carefully, became a testament to the possibility of growth, forgiveness, and understanding. As the years went on, Anna's influence continued to grow. She became a symbol of resilience in the mountains, showing that strength was not measured by conformity or hearing, but by intelligence, observation, and compassion. She demonstrated that challenges could be transformed into opportunities, and that differences could be celebrated rather than judged. Her life inspired others to look beyond limitations and to embrace the possibilities that lay hidden in every person and every situation. Anna also found time to care for the forest itself. She learned to protect the wildlife, preserve the plants, and maintain the delicate balance of nature. She taught others to do the same, emphasizing the importance of harmony between humans and the natural world. Her work became a legacy, one that would continue long after she was gone, leaving a mark not only on the people she taught, but also on the land she cherished. Through it all, Anna never forgot the lessons that had shaped her. She remembered the fear and anger of her father, the whispers of doubt from the villagers, and the challenges of growing up deaf in a world that did not always understand her. She also remembered her mother's love, Elias's guidance, and the strength that had always existed within her. These memories became the foundation of her life, a source of courage, wisdom, and inspiration that guided her every decision. Anna's story spread quietly through the mountains. People spoke of the girl who had been abandoned, misunderstood, and doubted, and who had grown into a remarkable woman, capable of thriving against all odds. She became a symbol of hope and possibility, showing that intelligence, resilience, and compassion could overcome even the harshest beginnings. Her life was proof that differences were not weaknesses, but gifts that could teach the world new ways to see, understand, and grow. In the evenings, Anna often sat by the same stream where she had learned to read the vibrations of the water. She watched the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors, feeling the rhythm of the world around her. She thought of the journey she had taken, from fear and doubt to confidence and wisdom, and she smiled. Life had been difficult, but it had also been rich, full of lessons, love, and growth. She had faced challenges, embraced her abilities, and transformed her life into one of purpose and meaning. And so Anna's life continued, a life of learning, teaching, helping, and inspiring. She had become a woman who could face the world with confidence, grace, and compassion. She had shown that challenges could be overcome, that differences could be celebrated, and that strength was built not only through survival but through patience, understanding, and courage. Her legacy, though quiet, was powerful. It lived in the children she taught, the villagers she helped, the forest she protected, and the hearts of everyone who had witnessed her journey. Anna's life was proof that resilience, intelligence, and kindness could transform even the most difficult beginnings into a story of hope, inspiration, and lasting impact. And as the mountains stood tall around her, the forests whispered with the memory of her steps, and the streams carried the rhythm of her hands, Anna knew that she had found her place in the world, not because of the world's approval, but because she had discovered her own strength, her own courage, and her own voice. She had become a living example of what was possible when love, guidance, and determination met courage and intelligence.